Decarbonizing cement production is one of the most urgent engineering challenges of our time. For over a century, we've relied on Portland cement made by heating limestone in giant kilns. But there's a catch. Limestone is calcium carbonate. When it's heated, it must release CO2. Even if the kilns ran on clean energy, the rock itself would still emit carbon dioxide. This process is called calcination, and it accounts nearly half of cement's total emissions. Fossil fuels add to the rest. But to truly clean up cement, we need to break our dependence on carbon dioxide emitting limestone. A new
When people
class
think of
of
decarbonization,
electrochemical
they often
technologies
think
aims to do
solar
exactly
panels
that.
and electric
Instead
vehicles.
of digging
But
up
there's carbon
limestones,
in everything around
researchers
us.
are learning how to make it
Cement is
using
responsible
renewable
for
electricity.
8%.
Here how it works. First, calcium is extracted from silicate materials or industrial waste using an electrochemical process. And at the same time, the system captures the carbon dioxide either from the air or from the industrial exhaust and converts it to sodium carbonate. The result? A synthetic limestone, pure calcium carbonate that already contains captured carbon. It can be fed straight into existing cement kilns with almost no modification. By replacing quarried limestone, we eliminate the geological carbon dioxide released during calcination. And if the process captures more carbon dioxide than the kilns later emit, the entire cement cycle can actually become carbon negative. Electrochemically produced calcium carbonate may be one of the most transformative material breakthroughs of the century, paving the way to a truly low carbon or even carbon negative cement. In layman's terms, the main ingredient in producing cement produces a lot of carbon dioxide because it heats up limestone that naturally releases carbon dioxide. To reduce carbon dioxide emissions, scientists have developed a method that instead of releasing CO2, they use to create man-made calcium carbonate. This man-made material still behaves like the normal Portland cement being produced today. Through electrochemistry, this method offers a much more eco-friendly production of cement. To understand how the new method can be groundbreaking in terms of carbon dioxide emissions, we must first understand the chemistry behind normal Portland cement is production. It can be divided into 5 different steps: raw materials, drying and preheating, clinker formation, cooling, and grinding. This part is where we explain the chemistry behind cement production. Every piece of concrete you see, from sidewalks to skyscrapers, begins with two simple raw materials: limestone and clay. These minerals are found deep within the Earth's crust, and the process starts by mining them from large quarries. Limestone is rich in calcium, while clay provides silica, alumina, and iron. Together, they must combine in just the right proportions to create essential ingredients for cement: calcium oxide, silicon dioxide, aluminum oxide, and ferric oxide. Getting this ratio right is crucial. It determines the quality and performance of the cement produced later. Once the raw materials are collected, they are transported to the crushing plant. Here, the large chunks of rocks are broken down into much smaller pieces. This is where precision begins. The crushed limestone and clay are carefully measured and blended together to create what's known in the industry as the raw meal. Think of it as the recipe mix that will eventually become the clinker, the heart of Portland cement. Next, the raw meal is sent into a massive rotating mill. Inside, powerful grinding equipment turns the mixture into extremely fine powder. This step is very crucial because the finer the material, the better chemical reactions will be when it's heated in the kiln later on. Fine grinding also ensures that the mixture is uniform, which directly affects the strength, durability, and quality of the final cement. By the end of this stage, the ingredients are perfectly balanced, rich in calcium oxide, silicon dioxide, aluminum oxide, and ferric oxide, and ready for the next major step, entering the kiln where the transformation into clinker truly begins. This careful process, from mining to crushing to fine milling, lays the foundation for one of the world's most essential construction materials. Before cement ever reaches a bag, a mixer, or a building, it all begins here. After the raw meal is carefully blended and grounded into ultra fine powder, its journey continues upward, literally. It enters one of the most important structures in the entire cement making process, the preheater tower. Rising dozens of meters into the air, this tower is where the raw material undergoes the first major chemical transformation on its ways to becoming a clinker. The first stage is all about moisture removal. As the fine powder enters the tower, it encounters hot air flowing downward from the kiln. This hot gas quickly brings the raw meal to around 100 degrees Celsius, or the boiling point of water. This can be described by this chemical equation. This step may seem simple, but it is essential. Even a small amount of moisture can affect heating efficiency and energy usage later in the process. Removing it now helps prepare the raw meal for the intense heat that comes next. As the raw meal gets carried upward by the airflow, temperatures rise dramatically. Between 400 and 600 degrees Celsius, something important happens in the clay minerals. They begin to dehydroxylate. Take kaolinite, for example, one of the common clay materials in the mix. As these temperatures rises, kaolinite transforms into metakaolinin, releasing water vapor in the process. Chemically, it can be described by this equation. This change might sound small, but chemically, it's a major step. The clay's crystal structure collapses, making it more reactive and ready for the next transformation inside the kiln. But the real star of the preheated tower is a process called partial calcination. As hot gases from the kiln rise through the tower, temperatures continue climbing, reaching the point where the limestone in the raw meal begins to decompose. At this stage, some of the calcium carbonate breaks down into calcium oxide, also known as lime, and carbon dioxide gas. Chemically, it can be described by this equation. The preheater tower doesn't just warm up the raw meal, it reshapes it. It prepares every particle for the extreme heat of the kiln, where the final and the most dramatic transformations will occur. Step by step, the raw meal is evolving, inching closer to become the gray powder that supports bridges, buildings, and cities around the world. This is the heart of the entire cement making process. After traveling through the preheater tower, the transformed raw meal finally enters the rotary kiln, a giant rotating fire-breathing cylinder. And inside this chamber, the most intense chemistry in cement production takes place. As the mixture moves deeper into the kiln, temperatures skyrocket, eventually reaching 1,450 degrees Celsius or 2,642 degrees Fahrenheit. This is hotter than molten lava, and it's necessary because the minerals that make cement strong can only form in extreme temperatures. Around 900 to 1,200 degrees Celsius, the first major mineral begins to form, belite. or C2S. Here, the silica in the raw meal reacts with calcium oxide produced earlier in the calcination. Chemically, it can be described by this chemical equation. Belite is responsible for the long-term strength of cement. It reacts slowly with water, strengthening concrete gradually over months and even years. Next is, as the temperature climbs above 1250 degrees Celsius, the materials begin to partially melt. It doesn't turn fully into liquid, but it softens enough to allow the next critical transformation. This semi-molten state is essential. Without it, the minerals that define modern Portland cement simply couldn't form. In this molten zone, something remarkable happens. Belite absorbs more calcium oxide, transforming into alite, or CS3S. Chemically, it can be described by this equation. Alite is the most important mineral in cement. It hydrates quickly, giving concrete its early strength, the kind that allows buildings, roads, and bridges to support weight within hours or even days. But a light can only form at extremely high temperatures, which is why heating the kiln to such intense levels is absolutely essential. While the silicates are forming, another reaction begins deep within the raw mix. Alumina, one of the minerals originally from clay, reacts with calcium oxide to create tricalcium aluminate, or C3A. Chemically, it can be described by this chemical equation. Tricalcium aluminate is sometimes called the timer bomb of cement. Once water is added, this mineral reacts very rapidly, helping determine how quickly the cement begins to set. Next, iron oxide joins the reaction. Together with alumina and calcium oxide, it forms tetracalcium aluminum ferrite, or C4, C4AF. Chemically, it can be described by this equation. This mineral gives this cement its natural gray color, and while it doesn't contribute much to its strength, it plays a key supporting role by helping other minerals form at slightly lower temperatures. As the kiln rotates, all these minerals, belite, alite, tricalcium aluminate, and tetracalcium aluminum ferrite, blend together. They slowly cool and solidify into hard marble-sized pellets called the clinker. Clinker is the lifeblood of cement. Once cooled and ground into fine powder, it becomes the gray cement used all over the world. Inside this massive, fiery cylinder, simple minerals are transformed into one of the most important materials in modern civilization. Every building, road, and bridges begins here, with fire, chemistry, and the creation of clinker inside the rotary kiln. After surviving the extreme heat of the rotary kiln, where temperatures reaches up to 1400 degrees Celsius, the newly formed clinker emerges red hot, almost molten. But the journey isn't over yet. In fact, what happens next is just as important as what happens inside the kiln. The clinker must be cooled rapidly, dropping from over 1000 degrees to near room temperature in just a few minutes. This sudden cooling is not just about making the material safe to handle, it's a crucial chemical requirement. Inside the hot kiln, the key cement materials have just been formed. Alite, which is responsible for early strength, belite, which is responsible for long-term strength, tricalcium aluminate, and tetracalcium aluminum ferrite, which is responsible for setting and secondary phases. But these minerals are only stable if they are cooled quickly. If cooling is too slow, alite begins to break down and can revert back to belite through reactions like this. This reverse reaction weakens the cement dramatically, reducing early strength and durability. Rapid cooling locks in the crystals, preventing unwanted transformations. The minerals formed inside the kiln are preserved exactly as intended. Cooling also affects how minerals crystallize. Fast cooling leads to smaller, more reactive crystals, which hydrate better when cement is mixed with water. Slow cooling creates larger crystals that reduce reactivity and weaken performance. Alite, the mineral responsible for early strength in concrete, is especially sensitive. Without rapid cooling, it can decompose from or form unwanted secondary compounds. The cooling process preserves alite in its strongest, most reactive form. By the time the clinker finishes cooling, its mineralogy has been stabilized. The material is now hard, glassy, and ready for the next major step, grinding into fine powder we know as cement. The cooled clinker is fed into giant grinding mills, massive steel cylinders filled with heavy metal balls. As the mill rotates, these balls fall and crush the clinker again and again and again, reducing it into particles smaller than a human hair. This fine particle in size is essential. The smaller the particles, the greater area available when cement needs water, and the faster and stronger the hydration reaction becomes. But clinker alone doesn't make cement. A small but very crucial ingredient is added during this stage. It is gypsum, chemically known as calcium sulfate dihydrate, or this chemical equation. Inside the grinding mill, the gypsum experiences slight heat from the friction. This causes part of it to convert to calcium sulfate hemihydrate. It can be described by this chemical equation. This simple dehydration reaction has a major purpose. Cement contains a reactive mineral called tricalcium aluminate, which was mentioned earlier. This reacts extremely fast with water, so fast that without control, cement could harden in seconds. This dangerous reaction is called flash setting, which makes cement unstable. Gypsum slows down tricalcium aluminates reactivity by supplying sulfate ions. Together, they form protective compounds known as entregite. Chemically, it can be described by this equation. This protective entregite layer prevents tricalcium aluminate from reacting too quickly, allowing cement to remain workable for minutes instead of moments. Traditional cement production begins with quarrying limestone, a rock made mostly of calcium carbonate. But this method has two major problems. It disturbs landscapes, and when limestone is heated inside the kiln, it naturally releases carbon dioxide, contributing to about 60% of cement's total carbon dioxide emissions. But what if instead of digging up limestone, we made our own calcium carbonate in a way that captures carbon? We can by using electricity. The idea is to use electrochemistry to create calcium carbonate directly from dissolved calcium ions and carbonate ions that originate from the captured carbon dioxide. The key chemical reaction is simple in principle. Here, aqueous calcium ions react with carbonate ions to form solid calcium carbonate. Then this solid can then be used as a drop-in replacement for quarried limestone in cement kilns. So where do these carbonate ions come from? The answer lies in a clever electrochemical trick called a pH swing. Carbon dioxide from the air or flue gas dissolves in water, but it doesn't stay as carbon dioxide for long. In alkaline solutions, it reacts with hydroxide ions to form bicarbonate and carbonate, given by these chemical equations. The hydroxide ions are produced at the cathode when water is reduced, also given by this chemical equation. This electricity turning water into both hydrogen gas and hydroxide ions, which then captures carbon dioxide by converting it into carbonate. Once the solution is rich in carbonate and a source of calcium ions, whether from dissolved minerals, industrial waste, or other feedstocks is added, the two ions meet and spontaneously form solid calcium carbonate. This process effectively locks the carbon dioxide into a stable mineral form. The precipitated calcium carbonate contains a carbon originally captured from air or flue gas before it reaches the cement kiln. It is a loop, not a leak. In a conventional kiln, calcium carbonate is heated and breaks down, which was described by this chemical equation earlier. This calcination reaction is what releases the huge amount of carbon dioxide in traditional cement making. But with electrochemically made calcium carbonate, the carbon dioxide released in the kiln was already captured from the atmosphere or flue gas upstream. This means that the net carbon dioxide release can be near zero or even negative because the same carbon was first captured and stored as calcium carbonate. This method eliminates the need for massive limestone quarries. Instead of blasting rocks out of the ground, we electrically synthesize the same material, turning a greenhouse gas into a building block. The carbonate ions create electrochemically become literal carbon storage in cement feedstocks. At first glance, electrochemical calcium carbonate production may seem like a high-tech detour, but once integrated with existing cement plants, the downstream process, crushing, preheating, kiln, firing, and clinker grinding remain nearly identical. What changes is the carbon story. Carbon dioxide is no longer an inevitable byproduct, but a raw material captured, transformed, and stored in cement itself. Cement production is essential for our buildings, roads, and infrastructures, but it comes at a cost. Roughly 8% of global carbon dioxide emissions come from making cement. A large portion of this comes from heating limestone or calcium carbonate inside kilns, which naturally releases carbon dioxide during calcination. To tackle this challenge, researchers around the world are exploring electrochemical solutions. While still in development and not yet available on the market, these new approaches show a promising future for reducing cement's carbon footprint. Institutions such as Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, University of Michigan, Northwestern University, and Caltech are leading the way. Their work focuses on creating carbon-negative calcium carbonate that can replace mined limestone. So what is their process? It's basically electrochemical decarbonization. The core idea is elegantly simple. Use electricity to drive chemistry. Water electrolysis produces a pH gradient, hydroxide ions, accumulated at the cathode, while protons, H+, form at the anode. Under acidic conditions at the anode, calcium ions, Ca2+, are leached from calcium-rich sources such as silicate rocks, recycled concrete, or industrial waste. Those calcium ions then meet the carbon dioxide, either captured from flue gas or directly from the atmosphere. In the presence of hydroxide ions, the reaction is straightforward, given by this chemical equation. The carbon dioxide is transformed into solid calcium carbonate, a stable material that could serve as a drop-in replacement for limestone in cement kilns. The result. The result is a carbon-negative cement feedstock. The resulting calcium carbonate is carbon negative. When used in a cement kiln, the carbon is released during calcination, was already captured from air or industrial sources, effectively closing the carbon loop. This means that cement production could eventually go from major CO2 emitter to a process that stores atmospheric carbon in concrete itself. While still in research phase, electrochemical decarbonization represents a transformative step for the cement industry. With continued innovation and scaling, the dream of carbon neutral or even carbon negative cement may soon become a reality, redefining on how we build our world.